a boy watches the dense snowfall from the car window when he receives a message from his father informing him that he will not be able to pick him up, so the boy must return home alone. And as he walks a little further, he asks the driver to leave him there as he is already close to his destination, and when observing the landscape he feels a great peace and freedom. After all, there are no people or cars in that area, and this makes it very different from Tokyo. However, the dense air of Hokkaido causes him enormous discomfort, and so he comments to himself that his father's choice in moving there at this time of year was not a very good one. And to make matters worse, he notices that his cell phone's battery is about to run out, and suddenly a blonde girl appears in his path, and the boy comments that she would be a gyru because she lives in Hokkaido. After all, for having her legs out in this cold, she really isn't an ordinary person. Then she looks at him, and then he shows her a path on the map and asks her how to get to her destination, and after she tells him the path, he leaves the place, but the girl stops him and asks if he intends to go on foot. He responds yes, and she informs him that it will take him 3 hours to get there, and upon hearing this he is surprised, as he had no idea it would take so long to go to a neighboring district, and the girl explains that the Kitami region it's very big, and when he comes to his senses, he regrets having decided to take the taxi so early. After all, he thought he would walk a short distance to get to the other district, but the boy raises his head and says he just needs to take another taxi now, but she informs him that taxis don't go there. But he tries to insist, and asks if it's possible for a taxi to come to him if he calls him on the phone, and she says that with good luck the driver will arrive in about 30 minutes, so the boy accepts that he's in trouble. However, the girl invites him to wait for the bus together, and says that the bus will arrive in 5 minutes and will also stop at his destination, and upon hearing this he gets excited, and thanks her for saving him from waiting 30 minutes that way. Cold. And then she asks where he is from, and the boy explains that he moved there from Tokyo, and when she finds out where he came from, she is amazed and asks why he moved there from Tokyo so suddenly, and he says that the change occurred for family reasons, but she states that compared to Tokyo, Kitami is a very average place, so she deduces that he must find all his fellow countrymen tacky. But the boy says that he actually thinks otherwise, because that place brings him a lot of peace, and the girl's words remind him of when he was being bullied, and at that time the insults were also related to him being tacky and not popular, so he still, even though he lived in Tokyo, he still remained tacky in the eyes of many. But being in new lands, he feels relieved that people haven't yet discovered that he's corny, so she's interested in finding out more about him, and asks his age. He then responds that he's 16. And upon hearing this she gets excited and says that they are the same age, and then she asks which school he is going to, and the boy reveals that he will study in Hokkaido, at which point she gets excited again, as he will also study at the same school than her. And then the girl takes him by the arm, leaving him slightly red, but he allows her to continue touching him because of the cold, so she asks him to loosen up more and talk in a less formal way. And when the girl sneezes, he worries, and asks her if she's okay, and she says yes, but when he sees her with a runny nose, he hands her a tissue. And although the cold is killing him, the boy appears to be excited, as he has never had so much contact with a girl while in Tokyo, and this makes him wonder if all the girls in Hokkaido are like that too. And while he travels in his thoughts, she keeps calling him, and seeing that the boy isn't going to answer her, she decides to put ice inside his shirt, so he complains about the cold, but when he looks at her, he ends up accidentally saying that she is very pretty, and it makes her blush with embarrassment. And in the midst of this awkward atmosphere, her bus arrives, and before she leaves, she asks the girl's name, and she says she is Fuyuki Minami, and then she leaves, saying that she will see him at school later. And with that the boy celebrates and says he's happy to have gone to Hokkaido, so his father sends a message asking if he had arrived yet, and upon reading this he remembers that he should have gotten on the bus with her. And when Minami thinks about him, and says that it would be great if they fell into the same class, and the next day, he goes to his new class, and introduces himself as Shikitsurbesa, and he tells his new colleagues that he moved there from Tokyo the day before. And after the presentation, the teacher tells him to sit in the row next to the corridor, and when he looks around he doesn't see Minami, and deduces that she is in another class, and this makes him slightly sad, but Shiki tries to convince himself that who doesn't like her, because his preference is for serious, dark-haired girls. And he believes that he was only surprised by her because he had never met a girl like Minami before, but when talking about her, the girl appears in the room, and upon seeing him, Minami immediately goes to talk to him, and the teacher complains and he says he was late again. And meanwhile Shiki is surprised, as he didn't expect these movie cliches to happen to him too. And in the middle middle of class, she says that his name is very beautiful, and to make him even more crazy, Minami calls him by his first name, and he says that only his family and friends call him Tsubasa. Then the class continues, and Shiki starts to shiver from the cold and wonders how people can study in these conditions, and then he feels like he's going to end up catching a cold. And then Minami notices that he is cold and gives him an extra cloak so he can warm up, and he notices that the cloak is warm for her body, and it also smells really good. He feels like he's receiving a direct hug from her, but after thinking too much he decides to cheer himself up, otherwise his hormones will take away his concentration. And when the class ends, he thanks her for the cloak she lent him, and then she smells her cloak, and Shiki says she can wash it if she wants, but she says she's only smelling the cloak so she can smell the added scent of them too. And well, she says that he can do something to thank him for the mantle. In this case, she wanted him to accompany her when she left school, because on that day there would be no one to do that. And then Minami says that it's okay for them to be stuck together. After all, she already considers him a very close person, even though she met him the day before. He then asks where she lives, and Minami says that she will take a locomotive to get home, so he would only need to accompany her to the station. And halfway through, she asks if he has a girlfriend, and he firmly denies it, and the girl bursts into laughter, finding it hilarious that he emphasized that he's single. And she asks where he usually goes on dates in Tokyo, and Shiki says he goes to Harajuku or Shinokubo, but he remembers that he's never had dates. And Minami is surprised by the answer, as she thought he would go to Shibuya on those occasions, and he explains that on dates it's better to go to a place where you can eat and go for a walk. He then asks Minami which places she goes for a walk in Kitami, and she explains that the winter is very cold, so their meetings only happen at home. And then Shiki notices that they are very direct, and after thinking about it a little the boy decides to let go of these impure thoughts, and when they take a few more steps, they finally arrive at her starting point. Then Shiki says goodbye, but before letting him go, Minami asks him to come to her house the next day. After all, tomorrow they won't have classes, and she says she wants to know more about Tokyo. However, he doesn't know what to answer, as things are moving faster than he expected, and upon seeing him very thoughtful, Minami deduces that he doesn't feel like going to her house, but he takes courage and says that he will go to her house the next day. Then the girl smiles again, and after exchanging contacts Shiki returns to his house, and the next day he stops in front of her house, and becomes thoughtful about this situation, as this is the first time he will go to a woman's house. Furthermore, he remembers that his family cannot find out about this, otherwise he will be in trouble. However, he feels that the temptation to be there is much greater. Then he calls for her, and Minami tells him to come in, and as soon as the two see each other she informs him that her parents are not at home, and then she calls him to the living room, and as he steps onto the carpet he feels something warm on his face, her foot, and Minami explains that her living room has floor heating, while her bedroom is colder due to having a small heater. And then he sits down, and he's relieved, because he doesn't think they're going to do anything immoral in the living room, but she starts to tease him with touches and asks what they're going to do now, and the boy is left without a doubt. Answers, and then she goes to the kitchen to get him something to drink. And when drinking that juice, Shiki feels a similar taste to some yogurt drinks he used to drink, and meanwhile, Minami ends up spilling some juice on his clothes when trying to pour it out, so she leaves him alone and goes to change. But when she returns, Minami appears in an even more provocative outfit, driving the boy crazy, and then she explains that she dresses like that at home because of the heat it is there. Then Shiki tries to change the subject, and says that he brought a movie from home for them to watch, and when the girl goes to play the movie for them to watch, another eki scene happens. And in the middle of the movie, an awkward preaching scene starts, and obviously Shiki starts to get tense, and then she touches him lightly with her foot, and when he looks at her, he discovers that she was sleeping this whole time, and Shiki notices that she is very careless for sleeping next to an unknown man. And after a while she finally wakes up, and Shiki gets ready to leave and says he will leave the DVD with her, so that Minami can finish watching the film. And when he was on the way home, she runs after him and apologizes for having fallen asleep in the middle of the movie, but he ignores this and says that she will catch a cold if she goes out in these clothes in this cold. Then she takes his hand and says she will buy him something to eat, as a way of making amends for what happened.
How was the video? We hope it was good. If so, please check these videos. Also, please comment down your thoughts and your suggestions for future videos. If you haven't already, please consider subscribing now to show the support to our channel. We hope to see you soon with another video right in this channel. Have a nice day.